All right, our first order of business here is we got to get our new drive sprocket on. Now, you may notice, you may have not noticed, I did do a little bit of work here off camera. So I've got a new bearing race for the main shaft bearing and the primary put on here. I replaced the output shaft seal that's behind here and also replaced this large main seal here on the transmission, as well as the shifter shaft seal behind here. That was just work I did off camera while we were waiting for stuff. Maybe, I don't even know what I was waiting on, but just figured it's kind of stuff we've shown before on other bikes. It's just replacing seals. So if you're interested in that, I'll try and link a video where we do seal replacement. I think I did it on the FXR. I'll try and put a video. But anyway, our next step now is to go ahead and get the new sprocket on. So sprocket in this case, nothing to figure out, comes with the Trask rear sprocket as a kit from them. So that's nice. You don't have to be trying to figure out offsets and all that other stuff. It just comes with what you need. So go ahead and put this on. There we go. All right. Now, I've got a new nut here. Sometimes we replace these, sometimes we don't. When I have them, I like to put new ones on just because they're under so much torque and force getting them on and off that it's just one of those things. They're not super expensive. Putting on a new one is just good insurance. So I'm gonna put some red Loctite on here and get this tightened down. Now I'll tell you, there is a spec in terms of doing a torque sequence on this. It's a little bit difficult to do, I'm not gonna lie. I've got a locking tool that'll hold the sprocket here, which actually I'll show you. I'll use it when I put the lock ring on, but me personally, honestly, I just like to put the impact gun on it and make it tight. I don't think the whole torque sequence is as necessary as maybe in other things. So I just use the impact gun and get it on there real good and tight. All right, so there's our sprocket on. Now we just gotta go ahead and get the lock plate put on here. All right, I did not have a replacement for this, so we're gonna reuse the original one. Just wanna get it so that we can get these holes lined up. And, all right, so here's our first little modification we're gonna have to do. The lock plate does not fit inside the sprocket. Now, I can't remember if I remember that being something that they call out with this Trask kit, but not a big deal. We're just gonna take a little material off the outside corners here to get this to fit in. So let me do that, and we'll come right back. All right, quick trip to the belt sander, just knock down the edges here, and we should be hopefully good to go here. Let's see what we got. Perfect. All right, so that slips right in. We're lined up with 2 of our holes and ready to get the screws put in here. All right, put a little Loctite on each of these. And probably you don't really need it to do this part of it, but I figure I'll just show you that locking tool I have that we can use to hold this in place while we tighten these. Okay. Now, so when you turn this thing, the sprocket is going to want to turn that way, clockwise. So if we put the locking tool in, I'm pretty sure this way should do it. Yep. So that will hold it from turning, and this plate will just rest against the swing arm, and you'll be able to tighten it. So as long as we're being fancy about it, I'll get the torque wrench out, and we'll do each of these to 120 inch-pounds. All right, so I think we're just deforming the lock plate a little bit here, which is, looking at this, what happened the last time this was taken off. So I don't want to do that. All right, I do want to make these as tight as I can. I'm actually going to put washers under here, which I've never seen done before, but I think it'll help. So let me grab a couple washers and see how that looks. Let's throw a washer in there. This should help. And I'd be concerned if the heads of these screws or bolts, what have you, were going to stick out too far. But since they're not sticking out beyond where the sprocket is, I can't imagine there's going to be a clearance issue. So let's try that and see if we can get it to tighten up. Yeah, that's better already. Cool. All right. Even kind of deforming those washers a little bit, but hey, it's better than it was before, right? If you're interested in this, comes from 9 Finger Fabrication. Check them out, Instagram or website. All right, this is good to go. So at this point, what I want to do is get our chain, get it test fit in place, and we'll get it cut down to length. We'll get the master link done, and we'll have a chain drive. All right, so that's going to be our rough fitment. I've got the axle pretty far forward here, not all the way forward, but pretty close. We got a lot of room to adjust it back. We've got 2 of the inside links together here, and we've got quite a bit of slack to take out of this, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to zip tie this chain in place here, and I'm just going to adjust the axle and make sure I can get it where I want it. And then once we're there, I'll put the slack back in the chain probably, but go ahead and depin this here to get the excess chain off, and then we'll get our master link made, and then, yeah, like I said, we'll be well on our way. So, as you can see, got some of the slack taken out of the chain. This is about where it's gonna be, but definitely we're in the zone of where we need to be to get this done. Certainly, you know, if the chain was longer, we'd have more room, but this lines up and we're good to go, and we've got plenty of adjustment room if we need it, you know, chain stretches, anything like that. So, yeah, I think gonna go ahead and just get this wrapped up, and we'll keep rolling along. All right, so there's our chain on. I probably could have shot on video doing the master link or the connecting link, but honestly, it's just so confined and tedious to do it. I can maybe do a video. If you're interested in seeing how to do that, just let me know in a comment, and I'll make sure we do it the next time we do a chain kit. But here's our master link. Basically, it's driving the pin out, and then you gotta put the master link in place with the 4 X rings in this case, put the plate on, press the plate on, and then rivet each of these and flare them out to lock it in place. Whatever your chain tool is, we'll have instructions that go with it. It's pretty straightforward, just takes a little practice. If you need a chain tool, we've got them on our website. Check it out in the link below. What I want to do right now is test fit the inner primary. There was a note from Trask that you may need to clearance the inner primary on late model bikes. I don't know what they mean by late model. Maybe they mean all 6-speed bikes. Maybe they just mean Rushmore bikes or Milwaukee 8 bikes. I have no idea. So I'm gonna see what the clearance is on our inner primary and see if I've got to do any work on that before we put it on, and we'll make some progress. All right, well, I did a test fit and we do have some clearance issues. So I actually found a note with a link to a YouTube video from Trask about the clearance issue and a little bit more information about how to clearance for it. They refer to 2018 and up applications, which is interesting because I wasn't aware there was a difference in the 2017 and 2018 bagger primaries, but they also say, but you should check all of them because you might have an issue on yours, and we do. So if I can show you here, I was about to start grinding this, so I put some tape on here to cover up the bearing that's the new bearing that's in there, but they refer to this lug right here, and they refer to this sort of bump out right here. That's not actually, at least right now, where I'm having the issue. Where I'm having the issue is, I don't want to touch it because there's marks from the grease, and that's going to help me do my clearancing, but I hope the camera will pick it up. You can see the chain kind of comes right across the top here. So this piece of webbing right in here, and then maybe on the top side of this lug too. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens if you know, just because you get the spot where it's touching, might come down and touch something else. So I hope we don't run into an issue. I mean, it looks like there's a fair amount of meat here that we can grind into this without putting a hole in the primary. Obviously, that would be a big problem, both because it would ruin the primary, but also it would mean that if we can't get it to fit without putting a hole in the primary, that means it's not going to fit. And we're going to have to figure something out here to make this all work. So hopefully this is no big deal. I'm going to get the file out and start to get in here and clearance this, and I'll just work it back and forth until I get the clearance I need, and then I'll show you the final product, and hopefully we can get this put on. All right, well, it's been about 3 hours of filing and grinding and test fitting and back and forth, and at least after all that time, I wish I could say, hey, it's done and it's perfect. It's not, and it's not. I don't even know where to begin. So right off the bat, had to take off way more material than I thought I was gonna have to. I don't know if what Trask was showing was just based on a stock height application, and obviously by raising it up, we increase that angle there that causes that chain to want to come down across that part of the back of the primary. I don't know why more people haven't run into this, but one thing I did realize was I did need to bring the rear of the bike down just a little bit. I was going and going. I actually already broke through the primary. I put a hole in it. So this thing, after all this work, may be trash, but I at least just wanted to see if I could get it other than that spot where I broke through. I'm gonna try and fix it. It's a teeny little like pinhole crack. I mean, I'll show it to you, I guess. Like, I don't know which side will be easier to see it, but basically where it broke through, it's right here where this boss for the bolt is, right at the sort of joint of that curve, and then right where it's flat, it's broken through. So here, hopefully you can see how much of this had to be clearanced off. And I literally just got it to stop rubbing here after this last pass. Now, what you can see is where it broke through, hopefully you can see it, it's that little horizontal line. You know, that is a thin spot right there, and I don't actually think I needed to go quite that deep right there. If I had moved the grinding out, you know, 3 millimeters and just started to come down a little bit further out, it probably would have been okay, although it looked like that was a spot I needed to take more material away, but it's hard to see here, but obviously it's on that slope coming down. I just didn't judge it exactly right, so it is what it is. I'm hoping that at least temporarily, I can plug it. I mean, obviously I can try and weld it, but then it's gonna be a whole, you know, another round of grinding again to grind the weld down. And honestly, I'm really not interested in that. At least for the time being, this isn't, you know, a bike that's for a customer, so we can be a little bit more risky with it. I'm just gonna try and put some silicone there and hope for the best. Do it on the inside and the outside. And hope that it'll at least hold for a little while until we can figure out something else to do with this. Even with all this grinding and even with breaking through, I don't know if I mentioned I'm a little shot at the moment. I did have to take the height out of these shocks, so we're still in the top hole here on the back, but that little, what is it like? It's not even a half an inch of adjustment that was set out. Maybe it's a 1/4 of an inch, 1/3 of an inch. I wound those back down to lower the bike down just a little bit to get that chain to come up off here, and it finally did after doing that. I'm on the looser side of properly adjusted. You want about 1 inch of travel in a chain when it's new. This is probably more like 1.5 inches. So this is gonna be fine, particularly when it's being ridden. The chain will tighten up as you put weight on the bike. But really, this all did need to come out. This is crazy. So, at least what I think I'm gonna do is try and silicone this and see if I can get it to hold. And we're gonna put this together. And if it holds, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. In the meantime, I think I'm gonna order another inner primary, and at least we'll have this one to compare to and can try and grind that one a little bit more precisely, and maybe we'll be able to do this without putting a hole in it. But who knows, maybe the silicone will hold. I highly doubt it. I don't think that's a permanent solution, but what are you gonna do? Okay, so after taking a little break to regroup and come up with a plan of attack here, I think I've got a solution that will both keep things moving along and also kind of get me prepared for the fact that this is probably not gonna work. So what I did was, like I said, I put some silicone onto the primary here to try and plug the little crack that we made where we ground through. So it's probably gonna be a little hard to see, but there's a little bit right up in there, and then there's a little gob of it kind of back here. Now, I really don't have a lot of faith in this, but the bigger question was, is the chain gonna rub where the silicone is? And the answer is no. So I put the silicone on, I let it set up for about a half an hour so that it would, you know, be able to be held in place. I did another test fit of the inner primary and ran the chain across to see if it would run through the silicone, and it's not. It's running outside of where the silicone is. So what that suggests is that if we were to do this again, I would be able to do this grinding without going through the primary. I'd have to just make sure to stay away from that spot and hopefully, you know, have this as a comparison so that I don't make the same mistake again. In the meantime, I'm gonna try and use this even though I don't really think it's gonna work. I've already put out feelers to get a replacement for this so that one of two things. Either this is gonna fail and we're gonna have to take it apart, you know, we'll run the bike and it's immediately just gonna start spraying primary fluid. That's one possibility. The other possibility is, I know I mentioned earlier, either this video or the last one, We've got more stuff planned for this bike down the road, and the primary is gonna have to come off again. So at least at that point, I'll just be prepared and have another primary hopefully sitting on the shelf. We can just add this to the list of things that even if this holds up for a little while, the next time we have the primary off, we can try and do a better job on doing this grinding and get it done in a way that's gonna be more permanent. So in an effort to make this a little bit better, I think as it is right now, I think this silicone would fail almost immediately. I think it would just sort of peel off. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this put on and in a final kind of assembly, and you can see the starter is back in position here, ready for the primary to go on. Once I get this on and we put the bolts in here, I'm just gonna do a big ring of silicone, just like right around this bolt, and try and seal the bolt to the back side of the primary and just make a nice big continuous like bead back there that I can really seal that. I think that might actually work. It's not gonna be elegant or pretty, but I think it might actually hold, at least for the time being. So that's what I'm gonna try. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep rolling and get this inner primary put on. And once we get it on and I get the bolts in, I'll show you what I'm gonna do with that. So I'm gonna keep rolling away here and hopefully we'll get back to making some progress. All right, so I've got the inner primary mostly reassembled here. Hopefully you saw that going together. What I wanted to show you was where we stopped, and I've now come back a couple days later. We were away at an event, and now I'm back. And before I left, what I did was, in addition to the silicone that I put on to the primary, both on the inside and outside to plug up that little hole we had, I just went and put a whole kind of big bead of it around this bolt, which is right at the edge of the flange of that bolt is where that little crack came through. So this is all in here. It's had a couple of days to set and harden, if you will. So like I said, I'm hoping that this holds for at least a little while. I did actually already get our replacement inner primary. So truthfully, I probably could just, rather than reassemble all this now, just fix the other one, do the grinding we need to do on the back side of it, but I'm gonna wait. Like I said, this is gonna wind up coming apart again anyway at some point down the road, so I figured let's just give it a shot and see if this repair is gonna work. Like I said, I don't think it's going to, but at least I hope it holds for a little while. So with that said and that all in there and cured, it's time to start putting the rest of the guts here. We'll get the clutch basket, compensator, chain, all that good stuff in here, and get some fluid in here and get this buttoned up. So let's keep rolling, and hopefully we'll have this back together soon. All right, with the outer primary cover back on and the fluid in, we are gonna pause on the left side of the bike here. Obviously, we've still got our derby cover to put on, foot controls over here. We're gonna do all that in a little while, but for the moment, I've got some other things I wanna tackle, so I'm gonna continue on and we'll see what's up next. All right, so we're back over here on the right side of the bike, and we've obviously got a little bit of work to do. I've got some covers removed here. So if you noticed on the left side, when I put the outer primary cover back on, I replaced the OE hardware that looks a little something like this with ARP stainless 12-point hardware. I'm a big fan of using ARP hardware. I think it's a really nice little touch that really can add a little bit of pop to putting a bike back together. They look great with black covers, they look great with chrome covers, and obviously they are the best hardware you can get. So internally is where they make a big, or can make a big functional difference in the strength and precision craftsmanship of them. But on the outside, it's mostly an aesthetic thing, which obviously is important all by itself. So we've got a bunch of ARP hardware kits. In this particular case, we're using a transmission and primary kit for this late model baggers. I'll put a link to that kit in the description below, and you can also check out some of the other kits we've got. Basically, they exist for just about anything you might want to do. So twin cams, M8s, primary engine, any of that stuff, there's ARP hardware for it. So if you want to upgrade your hardware, definitely check those out. So all that said, I've got a bunch more to do on this side. So the primary and derby cover are basically what's on the left side. Then over here, we've got new hardware for the transmission top cover, which I have removed, the clutch release cover, which is also removed, and finally, the transmission trap door, these side larger bolts here. Now, you don't actually need to remove these covers to do the hardware, so I probably could have just left the transmission top cover in place, although I just wanted to take it off to just take a look inside, clean anything needed to be cleaned, change the gasket. But this side cover more or less does need to be removed, and that's because to get this bolt out right here, the clutch cable is gonna be in the way of that, and you're gonna have a problem getting that bolt out with the clutch cable in place. Your bike might be different, but in most cases, that's definitely gonna be an issue. So take that cover off, we're gonna replace the outside hardware here, the larger hardware first, and I'll put a new gasket on, put the side cover, clutch release cover back on, and then do that hardware. One thing I'll note is these two bolts right here, I'm gonna leave those in place for right now because our new exhaust bracket is gonna mount here, so there's no reason to put ARP hardware in there because it's just gonna have to come out so we can put the exhaust bracket on. So I'm gonna do the rest of these right now, side cover, top cover, and we'll be looking good. I've got some other bolts that come in the kit, and I'll kind of show you where those go and what we're gonna do, and we'll keep rolling along. All right, so with all that done, I've got a couple more to do before we move up to the engine and start dealing with our new pipe and taking a look at the air cleaner. We've got, there's actually 4, we're only gonna do 2 right now. The engine to transmission mounting bolts, there's a top and a bottom on each side. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't thinking about it when I had the inner primary off, which you need to access the bolts on the other side. So when we take that off again, which of course we will, if for no other reason to repair that hole, we'll replace these bolts at that time. But for now, I'm gonna do these 2 on this side. So that takes care of our transmission hardware, and now I want to look at the engine. So I do have another hardware kit to replace external fasteners on cam cover, lifter blocks, rocker covers. So I'm going to knock all that out while we've got the pipe off and the tank off because we've got easy access to it. But I do have one other thing, which is the air cleaner I want to deal with. Now, this bike still has the stock enclosed air box on it, so definitely want to change that out. I've got a just a regular sort of kind of universal stage 1 air cleaner. The one for this bike is from Arlen Ness. I'll link down in the description to that as well. There is one thing that's a little different about this bike, which is it has the OE fan on the other side. And the way that fan is controlled is there's a wiring harness, a relay here, and then a wiring harness that comes from that relay up into the back of the air cleaner, which I'm assuming is a temperature sensor that is in the back of this air cleaner. So Obviously, the new air cleaner is not going to have a provision for that, so I'd like to take this off, see how it's put together. Maybe we can modify the air cleaner backing plate for the new air cleaner to work with this temperature sensor. Otherwise, I'm going to have to figure something out. I think I want to keep the fans on the bike. It doesn't really need it. You know, the fans come on the police bikes because of all the kind of low speed stuff that they do and a lot of idling, things like that. So not really necessary in our case. And if I wanted to put a fan on the bike, I'd probably do like an oil cooler fan as opposed to just a fan on the top end of the motor. But if we can keep it, I'd like to reuse it. So if I can't figure out how to modify the backing plate, we can always put it on a switch. That's definitely a possibility. But anyway, we're just gonna have to kind of take this apart and see what I see and figure out what we can do. So I'm just gonna start doing that. We'll get this removed and we'll see what's there. Okay, so interesting. The air temperature sensor actually does not come into the air cleaner. It's just sitting here, kind of touching the back side of it. So it's screwed into the backing plate, but the sensor itself, hopefully you can see it, here we go. It's just here on the back side. So that's interesting. That makes me think that we're gonna be pretty easily able to get this modified to work with the other air cleaner. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a screwdriver and a little wrench to get this disconnected, and then, well, we can start to clean up all this junk all around here. Okay, so using these studs to get the air cleaner backing plate aligned on here, just can kind of sit it on there like that. I was able to kind of feel around on the back side where I can place this in a place where it's not gonna get in the way of the throttle body control. And obviously we don't have all that extra meat on the backing plate on this side to put it back kind of in this location where it was. So the spot I found is kind of right down here. Now, this harness might not be long enough to get there, but that's no big deal. It's just 2 wires. We can always extend it if we need to. The other thing I did realize when I was lining this up was that the throttle body support plate does need to go back on in this particular application, so just went ahead and put that back on. It's probably good to take it off to clean all the gunk out of there anyway, but in any event, that's back on, ready to go. These will come out and get inserted into the standoffs as part of the installation. I just put them in here temporary to hold this straight. So I just marked the back side where the temperature sensor is gonna go with a Sharpie. I'm gonna drill some holes in this plate, and I'm not sure if the original screws are gonna be long enough to get through this thicker metal plate than the little plastic one that was there, but no big deal. We can grab some longer hardware if need be to get that attached. So I'm gonna go over to the other room, get these holes drilled, see what I got for hardware, and we'll start to get this prepped. I'm gonna hold off on installing this right away. I'm gonna do all of the hardware changes we have to do first, just so I got as much room as I can to work. And then once we get all the hardware replaced, then we can move on to getting the pipe and then finally the air cleaner installed. So stick around. Okay, lifter block's done. Let's do the cam cover. All right, before I put the pipe on and then the air cleaner, I am just gonna knock out these bolts here on the rocker covers. Figured why not. I already did the left side, just gonna take care of the right side now, and then we'll get this pipe put on. All right, so that's all our hardware changed. Now we get to have a little fun and get our pipe put on. So I'm gonna grab those parts, bring them over here, and probably get the bracket put on first, then our headers, and then we'll get the collector and muffler put on, and we'll be well on our way. All right, pipe time. So first thing I'm gonna do, like I said, is get the exhaust bracket put on. So here it is, and you saw the cover slide of the video already, so it's no surprise we're putting an HPI pipe on here, but you probably could figure it out even just from looking at this little piece right here that this is an HPI pipe. But anyway, we got the new hardware with some Loctite on here ready to go in. So I'm just gonna pull out these last two bolts that we didn't remove when I was doing the ARP hardware, and we will replace them with the new hardware and bracket. All right, there's our bracket on. All right, next little housekeeping item is we've got the new race style gaskets to go in for the flat-faced flanges on the HPI headers. So we'll just get these put up here. And obviously the old gaskets have been removed already. I did that some other point while we were in there cleaning things up. Okay. All right, cool. So that's the prep on the bike. Now I just got to get the headers ready. So included in the kit with the pipe is 2 new retaining rings for the exhaust flanges that you'll save off of your original headers. So I'm just going to throw these on with those exhaust flanges and install the O2 sensors. And I'm just going to do that over on the workbench. I don't want to pick up the camera and move it, but I'll show you that each header once I have it put together, and then I'll show you them going on the bike. All right, here's our front header with the O2 sensor in and the flange attached. So I'm gonna go ahead and hang this in place. One other thing I didn't point out is the exhaust stud hardware tends to get pretty gnarly on these bikes. I think probably has something to do with the fact that they're steel and they are in an aluminum head, and so they're more prone to oxidation anyway. Then maybe the heat cycling, I don't know, but exhaust studs and nuts tend to be one of the things that rust first on a Harley. So the nuts on this one were pretty trash. The studs cleaned up fine, so I left them in place, but got some stainless steel flange nuts here with some serration on the bottom side of the flange to keep them nice and snug. So these are great for replacing. I'll try and put a link to these in the description as well if I remember, in case you need some replacements. All right, so there's one hung there loosely. Nuts just run in, but obviously you can still manipulate the pipe around. I'm gonna go get the second one prepped, and we'll get that one put in place as well. All right, so here's the rear head pipe, same situation. O2 sensor in, flange on with the retaining ring, and ready to go up in place here. Just gonna grab another rag. All right, headers on, easy as that. Now, obviously, we've got our two head pipes sitting here, and all we've got to do is get the collector put on. Now, one of the many reasons I love HPI pipes is if you've installed as many pipes as I have, you know there's a big difference in ranges of quality of manufacturing, and that can be seen in a lot of different ways, but one way in particular is how easy it goes on the bike. Does it all just kind of naturally fit in the place it's supposed to be, or does it require a lot of bending and pulling and tugging and loosening and tightening? And there are some come to mind that do that. These HPIs don't. So I'm sure this bike will be no exception to the countless other ones we've installed, but hopefully we'll be able to see as we get the collector on and get this put in place that it just goes where it wants and you don't have to fight it. Not only does that mean it's going to be far less likely to break because there's no stress on the pipe, it also means it's easy to take on and off when you've got other work you got to do. You can just, you know, undo it, undo your clamp and take the whole thing off as one piece, take it off, put it right back on. But anyway, enough about that. Let me get the collector and we'll get that put on. All right. So we've got our muffler slash collector here ready to go on. Just a couple things you got to do on this. One is a step that's often skipped is put some anti-seize inside the flanges here. The head pipes will slip inside of these, and if you want a good shot of being able to take it apart, a little anti-seize never hurts. So that's one thing. And then the other piece is we've got the clamp that's for the rear mount, obviously that we installed before. That's got to get put on here as well. So it requires spreading it out a little bit to get it to go around there without scratching anything up. And then what I like to do is kind of clamp it back down as best as I can to try and reset the memory of the spring in the metal to be as closed as possible. It makes it easier to get the bolt and all that assembly started, which can sometimes be a little tricky. But anyway, with that squared away, all we've got to do is just slowly work the two pipes into the muffler here. All right, so once we have the head pipes into the collector, I'm just gonna go ahead and put the springs on just to get some tension on there. Sorry, not sure if I'm blocking the way here or not. All right, there's that. And then now basically what we gotta do is just get this, you can kind of turn it, make sure that we have clearance here on the brake and cam cover, transmission, and we can get our bracket lined up. So just kind of got to play with it. It's all still loose, hopefully, and we'll be able to, you know, kind of finesse it into place. The other way. There we go. That looks like we are pretty good everywhere except here. Nope, we're good, not touching. So brake arm is fairly close right here on the frame is fairly close, but it seems like we're okay. So I'm gonna call that good where it is for the moment. We're also not touching on the swing arm. So now what I wanna do is get the bolt started in here and get this clamp put on, and then we can get to snugging everything down. one piece. All right. So this can be the most difficult part, getting enough threads to pop through to get the nut started, but we got it. All right, just grab a wrench. It's gonna be a 17mm wrench to snug this down, and we're almost there. All right, so I just put a couple of turns on that. I'm not trying to tighten it, so it's still able to wiggle a little, which is good. And just want to check our clearance here in the front, make sure we're not actually gonna contact. I can pull that out a little bit. So up a little is good. Yeah, cool. All right, I like that where it is. So now, just like any other pipe, I'm gonna tighten the head studs down evenly, and then I'll come back here and tighten this at the end. Those are tight now, and actually our clearances even got a little bit better. There's probably about a 1/4 inch clearance here, and I don't know, maybe about an 1/8 here, but it's definitely not gonna hit. So that looks good. It's nice and straight, the line along the transmission, the clutch cover here. And we got clearance on the swing arm too, so we're looking really good. All I gotta do now is tighten this nut down and get our O2 sensors plugged in. All right, rock and roll. O2 sensors should be no big deal. Just gotta get the harnesses plugged back in. All right, so that's that. Now, one last final step, and maybe the most important one. I was wearing gloves in the beginning to keep as many of my fingerprints off of here as possible. Took the gloves off because it was getting sweaty. It's a little hot in here today. So there's definitely always gonna be oils on here. You gotta wipe that off really, really good, or all those oils and fingerprints, and I can see a few right here, they're gonna be in that pipe forever. So to get a real good wipe down, denatured alcohol, acetone, something like that. So I'm gonna wipe this down and ready to move on to get this air cleaner put on. All right, sorry, one more step that's probably a good idea before we move to the air cleaner is to go ahead and get the footboard put back on. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that I haven't really done much of anything in the way of foot controls. I'm probably gonna wind up wanting to replace all this stuff down the road. It's just not part of this phase of the project. I kinda wanna get a little time with the bike and see what I like and what's gonna work best. So for the moment, we're putting the OE foot controls back on. So if we've got any clearance issues, we'll need to deal with that. And then obviously we'll need to deal with it again if we wind up with issues that we didn't have before when we switched to some new stuff. So for the moment, we're just gonna see if these will go on. It's not a big deal. Sometimes you wind up with a clearance issue on the footboard, and the easiest thing to do is sometimes you can just grind a little material away here and then just repaint it. Other times you could put a spacer in, but hopefully we don't have to do any of that. But we're just gonna have to take a look and see what happens. Okay, get that one started. All right, so that is really, really close. Maybe about 1/8 of an inch, but I think it's gonna be fine. Just have to see, how we do with vibrations and things like that, but I think we just skated by on that one. seem to be in the clear. So, all right, starting to come together. Now, let's do the air cleaner. All right, so first thing I've got to do here is get the temperature sensor put onto the back of the plate here. So obviously you can see here the holes that I drilled, just comes through on the front side. Right here, there was a little Arlen Ness logo, and I just hit that quickly with a grinder flap wheel just to smooth it out a little bit. I didn't want those bumps there, just thought it'd be better to have the washer and nut be able to sit just flat down onto the plate. So that's what we got. So I did wind up replacing all of the hardware actually. So I did need screws that were slightly longer. I think these are 1/2-inch long screws. They were a little shorter than that. I decided to add some washers to it, and then also I replaced the lock nuts. They're nylock nuts. I replaced them with everything stainless steel just to, you know, keep any rusting or corrosion at bay. So let's just go ahead and I guess get this put on here, and maybe our wiring harness is long enough and we'll be good to go. All right, there's one. All right. Okay, hopefully you can see that there. Got the sensor in place and got just the exact right length hardware we needed to get those screws to catch in the nylock there. And it looks like, trying to see how our length on this harness is. Yeah, looks like we're good. Don't have to extend anything. I think this is gonna work out just fine. So I'm just gonna leave this here for a second. I'm gonna grab the rest of the hardware, start to get that all put together, and we'll get this air cleaner put on. All right, so the next step here I'm gonna take is to assemble the standoffs with these studs. This is what is gonna hold the backing plate onto the throttle body, and then they've got threads in the top end here that the air cleaner will screw into. To do this, I like to put red Loctite on these to get them permanently connected, so that in theory, once this is in here, it becomes basically one piece, and that if you ever have to take this apart again, and you go to turn this, the idea is hopefully it comes out this way and it doesn't leave the stud behind in the throttle body. That's the idea anyway. So I'm gonna assemble quickly these three with red Loctite. Okay. All right. So just gonna tighten those down in there pretty good. There's one. All right. There's our third one. Now we got those assembled. My next move is I'm gonna get the, well, let's do this. Let's get the breather bolts ready to go in as well. I'm gonna put blue Loctite on these, and I'm also gonna put blue Loctite onto the other side of those studs to go into the throttle body. All right, got those ready. And these, so there's a little bit of red Loctite that kind of got pushed out here. I'm just gonna wipe that off. I don't want that getting in the way of anything. Okay. So now, put blue Loctite on this end. All right. So, hardware's all ready. Now, I'm gonna take the 4 O-rings that go in the bosses for the breather bolts, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of assembly lube on them. Number one, it helps to have them go on without, tearing inadvertently, but also it helps to hold them in place while you're doing it so they don't fall out. Okay. All right. So we got one more piece, which is the gasket. So some bikes, some throttle bodies, there's an orientation for this. Looks like this one can go in any direction, so that's good. I'm gonna just get this, well, actually before I do that, let's get our O-rings in place here. Okay, so this can go up into place, the gasket in the back, and just gonna get that like that. Okay, so I'm gonna start all of these to hold the gasket in place. Go. So get those started, just making sure that our O-rings are still in place. That looks good. Go ahead and get the breather bolts started. Go. All right, get this last one. All right, so now all we've got to do is get everything snugged up and tightened down. Okay, sensor still good back there. Two. All right, backing plates on. One last step here is I'm gonna put some blue Loctite on the bolts for the air cleaner itself. Just a little bit. And get this up into place. Just gotta get the bolts aligned. Maybe this way. There we go. All right. All right, so there's our air cleaner good to go. Let me just go grab the cover and throw that on. All right, got the cover. You may notice this is not the same cover that came off here. The one that was on this bike had some wear on it, probably from some motorcycle cop's boot rubbing up against it all the time. I had this one on the shelf actually for several years. I found it at a swap meet a bunch of years ago and just had nothing to do with it. But today we've got a use for it. All right, there she is. All right, so that's gonna wrap it up for this installment in the video series. I think we got a lot done in this particular one. Truthfully, I don't even remember everything because we shot this over kind of a long period of time, but I know we got the chain kit on, we got our pipe on, air cleaner, changed out a bunch of hardware. Feeling really good about the progress we're making. So hopefully in the next installment, which should be coming soon, I'm just waiting on paint mostly and a little bit of powder coating for some other stuff. Hopefully we'll be getting the fenders back on and we'll get to start to see what this bike is really gonna look like. I'm excited. We do have a couple other little details that have to be figured out. I've got a whole bunch of wiring I need to deal with up in the front. Probably take care of that off camera because, well, me going through and pinning out a bunch of wiring harnesses is probably not that interesting. But in any event, we also have the other thing. I made a note for myself over on the workbench. Before we get the nacelle put on, I need to get the nut here set correctly. So we're gonna have to do our fall back, swing back, whatever you call it, tests. Got to get the bike on the ground to do that. But now that it's mostly together, it'd be no big deal to roll it off and you know, see what we got. So yeah, anyway, thanks for sticking around with us this far, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.